What's up, Liron here, and in this video I'm going to give you 3 tips for making the painting process much easier. Now, as we're talking about watercolor, which is a very time-sensitive medium, you have to work fast, it is important to make the painting process efficient and find those tricks and tips that will make it easier for you, because there's so much to think about and in terms of the shapes in negative painting and the value you're going to choose, and maybe even the colors in some instances. It's very important to simplify whatever you can. So let's get started with 3 tips to make the painting process much easier for you. So the first tip is to start your washes very small and controlled. And this is something I noticed with my students. Let's say they have to fill in this space. Now, instead of starting with the corner and slowly working their way towards the rest of it, they are in a hurry to fill it up. They're nervous, you're nervous about filling up the entire space, that you forget to start small and controlled. Okay, now if you start with just the corner, you can figure out, is that the right value? Do I need to darken it up? Do I need to maybe lift some of the paint back up? Is there enough water? And you can start working very controlled. Then as you expand the wash, you're still maintaining that control. You finished up with a section, then you move on. Another example I can give you is, let's say you paint a building in the background and you want to put in the windows wet and wet. You want to just put in some rows or lines or details that will melt into the wet and wet. If you fill in the entire shape, now you have to worry about everything. But if you just work on a section, have a bead, okay, so that you can continue the wash and then fill up the areas very slowly and carefully, you will maintain control. Okay, so don't be in such a hurry to fill up a shape. Take your time with it. Start with one side. Some people recommend starting from center outwards. That's fine in some cases, but let's say you're working downwards. Start with the beginning. Don't fill up a large space, because then you have to worry about all of its edges. Start small. Start small and humble. Work your way around it. Figure out, is it dark enough, is it light enough, then slowly move on with it. Tip number 2 is stop lines. Okay, now when you start working on a wash, you want to figure out the exact space you're going to fill up. Now, how do you even know what that space is? Let's say, again, you have maybe a car in the foreground, a building in the background. Where do you stop? So let's say there's a highlight on the car. That's a good place to stop, because the highlight is going to stay white or lighter, so you can paint around it. This is a stop line, and it's very important you start noticing these stop lines, because as you build your wash from top to bottom, you will encounter highlights, maybe on people's heads, figures' heads, signs, different elements in the sidewalk. If we're talking about urban landscape, if we're talking about natural landscape, maybe there's a bunch of trees here that are a little lighter, and you can stop the mountain ridge there. You have a stop line, and that it means a lot, even just psychologically, purely psychological, in calming you down, because this is where I'm going to stop this part of the wash. Okay, so use those stop lines. Here, what's another good stop line, by the way? Not a highlight, but a place where the painting gets fully dark, fully black, almost black. Because when you cover it with black, let's say you have a wash here, and it ends up with a shape that's black to this side. Okay, if you stop it here, and hopefully I'm going to show you examples while talking, but if you stop it here, when you put in the glaze, you glaze the black, you won't see that line of breakage or the unevenness, because you cover it with black. So that's another good place to stop. Okay, so the concept of stop lines, if you're getting to a point that's really a highlight or very light, or a point that's very dark, it's a good place to use as a stop line. And why do we even need stop lines? Because as I mentioned before, you don't want to work in a very stressed manner and thinking about covering up the entire thing all the time. First wash, you cover up everything, but it doesn't really matter. But then when you get to the details, you want to make sure I'm going to move the wash up to this line or around this area, and then I can rest. Okay, so stop line, rest line, that's a very important concept to have a grasp of. Next tip and final advice, and this is a more common one, especially in the first washes, use more water. This is a mistake, again, I see a lot of people make. They don't mix enough paint, but also they don't use enough water. And what happens is the paint doesn't move enough, the edges dry very fast. So if you want to give yourself more time to work on things, more time to do wet and wet, more time to explore the different possibilities you have with the paint you already laid on the paper, use more water. Now, you can't always use more water. Some washes are just inherently dark, but especially in the first washes, use more water. Use more water than you think you need. And when I say use more water, you need to have a bead. That's basically it. If you move the paint from top to bottom, make sure you have that bead, because that bead, just like the stop line, allows you to take your time with everything that's up top, because you know it will stay alive. Once you add more paint to it, it will go down gradually, okay? So these are the 3 tips, and it will just give you more time. I could give you an extra tip of using a spray gun like this one, and that'll help you give you more time to work on a painting. That's another good one. There are a lot of tips and tricks, but these are the main 3 ones. So let's conclude. Tip number 1, start your washes small and very, very controlled, okay? Don't be humble, take your time, work on a small section. Tip number 2, use stop lines. These will give you a mental calmness that will allow you to take your time, work in more depth on the area you're already working on. And the 3rd tip, use more water, use the bead, use a spray gun if you want to. Just give yourself more time to work on it, especially in the first washes, okay? Watercolor is complex enough as it is. You don't need to add any more hardships, so using these tips will really allow you to take your time and relax, because that stress of working too fast is a major part of why we mess up paintings, okay? And usually we don't even mess them up, they're just still work in progress. This is one of the topics I'm going to talk about in my upcoming course on how to let go and enjoy the painting process. It's just one topic out of probably, I don't know, 20 or 30 topics. So I think you're gonna really love this one. I will keep you updated on it in the future. But in any case, I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to give it a thumbs up if you have. It really helps me to reach more people. And also subscribe if you've been lurking. I have a lot of videos. I don't want you to miss an upload, so be sure to subscribe and hit the bell button to receive notifications. Thank you so much, and I will see you again. We'll talk to you again real soon.